very few of us ever get the opportunity to touch people globally. And Stan Lee is one of those few people. The other part of it is that think about every celebrity that you know. There's a natural bell curve. It goes up, you're at the top of your peak, and then eventually you start getting old, and then the cool, sexy people come behind you, and you move on. Stan Lee is 95, is at the top of his game at 95, right? So I used to do a lot of stuff with Stan when he was half that age. That meant that he was half as popular, so he was going. Let me tell you my brief meeting. Some of you may have heard the first time I ever met Stan Lee. I'm 16 years old. Come on, Stan. I'm 16 years old. I go to a convention like this. Stan Lee's sitting out on the side, and I get to sit next to Stan Lee. So with that, we know why you're here. Here's Mr. Stan the Man Lee. Okay, you've got a mic. You don't need it while you're here. Right? Come on.
It takes this man 10 minutes to make a 1-minute introduction.
All right, come down here.
You can imagine how long this will go on.
Right. So we only have a short period of time.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. But we have a long career to talk about for you. So here's a question. Actually, I'm curious before we get to some of the other questions.
You've had a long career too.
I'm getting there. Not as long as yours. Who were some of your influences when you were growing up, either literature and or comic books, right? Because we all sort of get inspired by different people. Who were your heroes in creativity and art?
People who did the comic strips that were good. There was the guy who did Secret Agent X9. Yeah. I forget his name. There was...
were these the comic strips, like on
in the newspapers?
In the daily newspapers, right, okay.
Yeah, they didn't really have comic books when I was growing up. And I read the books. I read Superman, yep. If you'll excuse the expression. I read Batman. I read Smilin' Jack. I read everything that was a comic book. I loved them. And then one day, I got into the field, and I realized I loved doing this. So I kept doing it, even though the public tried to get rid of me.
So when you got into comics then, did you always know you were going to be a writer, or was there any aspirations of wanting to be an artist at any time?
I would have liked to have been an artist, but I didn't have the time to study. When I was a kid, I used to draw. I drew a horizontal line, and that was the ground. And then I drew little stick figures doing all sorts of things. And I told myself stories with them. But the I did were never as good as Jack Kirby's. So I knew better than to get into that field. If you can't be the best, don't do it.
So you're in the 60s, comic books, I don't know if you guys know, there was a big witch hunt about comic books in the Senate. They took them out to the government and they said comic books were bad for society. It was proven that that was false, but by that point, comic book sales had gone down. This now becomes a vacuum that now Marvel Comics, as we know today, gets invented. So Marvel comic books timely changes the name to Marvel. So the question to me, which is curious too, I don't know if I've ever asked, the first book you created was Fantastic Four. Why a group book, given that Superman and Batman and Green Lantern and single characters were popular? Why did you start the flagship for Marvel as being a team book?
because I wanted to show off and prove that I could do 4 characters at once.
Oh, that's sad.
And I did them.
Do you remember saying Spawn is your best and favorite character?
Spawn and the artist who does Spawn are 2 of the great characters of our time.
Thank you. Thank you. You sound just like
You
my
may
mom.
quote me.
Now, at this time, I don't know if you guys know the process. There's 2 processes when you make a comic book. The writer can either do a full script. They put every angle, the number of panels, all the words, and then we draw it. And then there's the one that has been dubbed the Marvel style. So why did you go to that new system instead of doing a full script that you just gave a rough idea to the artist?
It was a matter of time. I was writing all the books just about, and I didn't have time to write a full script. So I would say to the artist, this is the story I want told. This is the villain, this is the good guy. This is what happens. Now you go ahead and draw it. Draw it any way you want to. Then bring me the drawings and I'll put in the dialogue and I'll make it all work. In that way, I could do more than 1 book a night. I could do 2
One book a night?
Yeah.
Wow.
I could do 2 or 3 books a night that way. So it worked for me.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've done both, right? And every time I've done a full script, I have a scar. Mentally, I have a scar. It's weird to me. The Marvel style, like I said, just go, here's an idea, Todd. You basically become the director. I get to become the director instead of you, the writer. And I thought that a lot of the artists from the 60s all the way up, arguably to 2000 until they changed the system, a lot of the big names that people know came out of the Marvel style. It was always odd that both Marvel and DC changed a system that created good books, good writing, and good artists, and that they haven't let the young kids flourish the way that we did. But good, because I get to be up on stage instead of them, right? So we're still up here. So the names you give your characters, what's the thought process of Hulk, Spider-Man, Thor?
Come up with names that are easy to remember. And
1 syllable. You like the 1 syllable one?
Hulk is easy.
Yeah.
How can you forget Hulk? Thor is easy, the god of thunder. Spider-Man was a concocted name. I made it up, but I liked it better than Superman or Batman. And the names were fun. I enjoyed coming up with names of villains too, like Doc Ock and the Green Goblin, and anything that sounded evil I put down. And it was fun. I was really enjoying myself.
So, in those movies, you guys have seen Stan Lee and his cameos, right? And he's kind of good. He's kind of sexy up there sometimes. They make him look good. So you got a cameo. You got a cameo on all these things, right?
I'm a little disappointed in my Black Panther cameo. I had wanted a great fight scene where I fight the Black Panther
To a standstill.
to a standstill. I didn't get that.
Okay, when you do your cameos, how many times do they do it? How many takes, or do you just get it the first
Oh,
time?
just 1 minute. I'm known as One Take Lee. I never repeat a cameo.
What, you come, you do it, they keep it, and then you go to the nacho bar.
I do it, they keep it, it goes into a museum, and people centuries from now will find great pleasure in the amazing artistry of Stan Lee.
I don't know.
I used to worry that I'd be conceited, but I really don't have that worry anymore.
Well, you know what? I'm about to get ready to shoot a Spawn movie. I'm going to put myself in it.
That's all I need, more competition.
I'm going to do a cameo, then we're going to be up against each other when it's award time for Best Cameo. Have you ever won a Best Cameo award?
No,
Duh.
there hasn't been any.
The Academy Awards, we're going to start to petition them.
I have been so sure that at each cameo award, somebody would get up and say, and my nomination for Best Cameo is, but they haven't gotten around to that yet.
I don't know if you guys know, Stan also, just to sort of add to his resume, is the only man, the only creator in our entire industry of over 80 years to have his name and his star on the Walk of Fame in California. So he broke a record.
Big deal, big deal. People step all over me.
I laid down next to yours and took a picture. I was right next to you. My wife was going, Todd, I just saw a dog pee there yesterday. Why are you laying there? But I'm going, I got a picture with Stan Lee here. They also, I don't know if you guys saw, you can Google it, they put Stan's hands, was it your feet too, at the Chinese man? You know, and you signed it and whatever else. So he's also, in that one, the only comic book guy to break into that field that is usually just given to the Hollywood bigwigs. Stan Lee is now busted out and has made it possible for any of us other comic book people to maybe follow in your footsteps. So I'd like to thank you on behalf of an entire industry that we now are being taken way more serious because of people like you. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for bringing this to the public's attention.
Yeah.
It's very important that you do this. It's very important that the public knows who's responsible for these wonderful cameos.
Yeah. They're going to call them Lee appearances. Stan Lee. Hey, as a matter of fact, that's a question. When I was a kid and I bought comic books, every one of the Marvel books said Stan Lee Presents. Every single one.
Everybody thought my last name was Presents.
Yeah. Stan Lee Presents. That's what they would call you, right? So to me, when I was collecting, you were like the Pope of Marvel comic books. How did that come about? I need to work on that then. They don't put it on every Image comic book, TODD McFARLANE Presents.
Speaking of that, you've done a number of interviews with me on stage. Is that us up there?
That is you. That's you, the big guy right there.
I think it's terrible that they don't put the screen there so you can look at yourself. But anyway, I have done a number of interviews with you.
Yes.
I want to go on the record, because I never had the chance to say this before, because they always end the interview quickly and I'm thrown off the stage. But I want to say, you are absolutely the best guy anybody could be interviewed by. You are the most entertaining guy in the field, and I am tremendously lucky to have you interview me whenever you do it. I just wanted that to go on the record.
Thank you for those kind words. Like I said, I met Stan when I was 16 at a convention like this. He was out in the hall. I just said, hey, Mr. Lee, who was the Pope to me, can I sit down next to you? And he
The guy said, hey, Mr. Lee. I figured he liked me.
Yeah. And he let me sit next to him, literally right here. He pulled up a seat and let me sit next to him, and nobody, for the next 2 days at a convention. Just as he signed, I peppered him with questions. You don't really, I know you don't remember it because I was one of 1,000 people that day, but that day gave me the information and the inspiration to actually get into the business. So this is why these conventions, I think, are important. People can come, ask questions, maybe be told, yes, you've got a chance, you can do it. And so I can argue that I'm actually on the stage with you because I actually had a chance of meeting you when I was 16. So you and I go way back. So, yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask the first one. We're going to get the obvious one out of the way because we hear it every time. Mr. Lee, what is your favorite character that you've ever created? And if anybody wants to ask a question, come up here and I'll hand you the mic real quick so that we can hear your question. Come up here if you got a question.
I'll throw you a curve.
Okay.
The Silver Surfer.
Silver Surfer? Wow, there's a surprise.
I always had a thing for the Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
Because he philosophizes about Earth and the people and everything about it. And it gives me a chance to do a little philosophizing in my stories. I don't use them enough, but I like the Silver Surfer.
You know who mine was? Mine was The Thing.
The Saint?
The Thing.
Oh, but
from Fantastic Four, The Thing. I remember as a kid, my first comic book, I still remember it. He said 2 lines that I've never forgotten since. I was about 8. And in this one issue, don't remember, he says, it's clobbering time, which I thought was cool. And he said, I'm going to give you Excedrin headache number 5 as he punched the guy. And Excedrin is a medicine for your headaches or something like that. So The Thing to me, I thought was...
You have a very violent nature.
Yeah. All right.
My cousin is trying to get into comics. He's learned a lot from your books. Do you have any advice you could give him about just getting into the industry? He wants to be a writer.
Right.
Right. That was the question. Right. What's your answer?
You want to be a writer? Right. You want to be a prize fighter? Fight.
Yeah. You want to be rich? Get rich.
You want to be muscular? Lift weights. Whatever you want to do, there's a way to do it. If writing is what you want to do, you've got to read a hell of a lot. And you've got to make sure you can write as well or better than the people whose writing you like.
Here's what I'll say from the artistic side. I don't know if it applies on the writing side for anybody that might want to break into comic books. Was the guys that were really good were my inspiration. The ones that were not so good were the reason I wanted to get into the business. Because you will never take over the place of the best guy. I saw you're never taking their job. What you might do is take over the job of the 5th character in a show on a station that nobody's watching. So you start low, and what I did was I would look at it and go, what? If that guy can draw crooked eyes, I can draw crooked eyes, right? So it wasn't the good guys, it was the bad guys that you have to think that you can do better than them. And he's right. The words of advice I got as an artist that I hated was people say, you need to draw more, Todd. It's obvious. But any skill you're going to do, the more you do it, the better you're going to get. It's that simple, right? It's just learning a language. It just happens to be writing. So it's a simple answer, but it's actually true.
Thank you.
Yes, next. Yes?
I can't remember it. I'm just excited.
What's your name?
Alan?
Alex?
Alan.
Alan?
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. Alan wants to know if you could say hi to him. Just say hi to Alan right here. That's his question. Could you say hi to me?
What if I say hi to Alan, but I'm looking in the wrong direction? Point me exactly where.
He's straight ahead.
Hi, Alan.
Raise your hand, Alan.
Raise your hand,
There
Alan.
you go. That's a good question, Alan. Good job. All right, next. Oh, the last question. Of all your cameos, you have one that stands out as your favorite.
Yeah, the one where Thor is asking me to take. No, Thor is taking a drink, and I'm asking for a sip, and he won't give it to me. He says it's too strong for me. And I say, come on, I can drink anything. Let me have it. So he gives me the drink. And in the next scene, I'm being dragged out unconscious. And the reason that's my favorite is because it's the only scene I've ever done, the only cameo I've ever done, which had 2 scenes. So I love it. I hope it encourages the movie company to give me 3 scenes next time.
There you go. All right. Before we end it, Stan, we're going to take a group photo here. We're going to turn around. We're going to take our photos. Come on up here. All right, let's take a photo.
What do I have to do?
We'll come up here. We're going to take a photo.
Where do I go?
I'm going to take here. Put this down. Let's do it. Come on. All right, before we go, he's got one last thing to say to everybody.
Excelsior!
All right, everybody, Mr. Stanley. Thank you, Stan.
You've been the greatest audience, and I've had the greatest interviewer. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, be good, everybody. I'll see you in 2 hours.